Hello, my name is Jordan Clark, and I'm going to be speaking to you about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean in the world, stretching all the way from the west coast of the Americas to the east coast of Japan. The Pacific Ocean is not only the largest ocean, but it is also home to the Marianas Trench, which is the deepest point on Earth. It boasts the largest number of coral reefs, and roughly 70% of all fish caught each year come from the Pacific Ocean. Though the Pacific Ocean has a lot of neat characteristics, it also has, through no fault of its own, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. For years, little was known about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch because it was not discovered until 1997 by Charles Moore. Moore discovered the garbage patch while sailing between California and Hawaii. It was later discovered that there is actually a western and eastern patch, one of which floats near the coast of Japan. This garbage patch is in constant motion due to the North Pacific Gyre. A gyre is defined by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as a large system of swirling ocean currents. The garbage patch is filled with an estimated 79,000 tons of plastic, with 46% of the plastics being from fishing nets. This patch of garbage is mostly comprised of fine pieces of plastics known as microplastics. These microplastics are formed from ocean currents, sun exposure, fish bites, and other contacts with the plastics, causing them to break down into a smaller, almost microscopic material. These plastics polluting ocean waters have adverse effects on the fragile ecosystems of the ocean. Fish being found with stomachs full of plastics, collapses of coral reefs, birds eating plastics mistaking them for food, and plankton eating plastics tampering with their ability to process carbon dioxide are just a few of the problems plastic pollution is having on the ocean. This massive collection of garbage spread throughout the Pacific Ocean did not just happen overnight. In 1907, the first synthetic plastic was created, and almost immediately humans were hooked. Plastic is a chain of synthetic polymers made with fossil fuels. Over 100 years later, and it is nearly impossible to find a product that does not contain plastics. Annually, roughly 300 million tons of plastics are produced to meet the ever-growing demand for cheap goods. This includes plastic bottles, grocery bags, shoes, pens, and the list can endlessly go on. With such a high demand for cheap, one-time use products, it seems logical that a plan would be made to properly dispose of and recycle plastic products, but this is not the case. Landfills reaching maximum capacity, shady disposal agencies in charge of the cleanup, and genuine lack of care from the 7.5 billion people alive on Earth today have contributed to the oceans becoming the world's trash bin. Overconsumption is not the only contributing factor to this ever-growing problem. Money plays a huge role in the cause of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Rather than companies investing in a safe, organic, and biodegradable products and packaging that could have prevented or lessened the current situation of the patch, most have chose to move forward on the cheap and potentially hazardous plastics that will remain in our oceans for hundreds of years before decomposing. In the United States, less than 10% of the millions of tons of plastics discarded each year are recycled. This one-time use mentality is a devastating issue that requires a change in human habit to overcome. Not only are plastics in the ocean devastating to our wildlife by means of entanglement, but risk of ingestion and a threat to biodiversity raise major concern. Fishing provides millions of Americans alone food each year, and the commercial fishing industry generates $208 billion in sales annually, as well as contributing $97 billion to our nation's gross domestic product each year. Even though fishing helps to stimulate our economy, we may be putting ourselves at risk by consuming fish. Roughly 70% of the fish tested in the Pacific Ocean were found to have stomachs full of plastic. This may not sound scary, but when fish are ingesting microplastics mistakenly for plankton or smaller fish, some of the plastics are actually digested, tainting the meat of the fish. This has allowed plastics to invade our food chain at an alarming rate. Some of the petrochemicals used in the process of making plastics are toxic and can put individuals at a higher risk of developing cancer if ingested and processed throughout the body. The commercial fishing industry is also causing a large portion of the plastic pollution in the Earth's oceans. Large nets used to bring in big quantities of fish often break and gather more of the plastics in itself as currents drag the nets throughout the oceans. Those profiting the most off of our oceans are actually the ones causing a huge chunk of the damage. With our oceans being one of our oldest, most mysterious, and most bountiful resources, it would prove to benefit society if we can clean up the plastics from our oceans. Accredited scientists all agree we can each do our part in cutting away at the Great Pacific Garbage Patch by simply reducing, reusing, and recycling. The less plastics we use in our day-to-day lives directly benefit the health of our oceans, which can help to tackle the issue of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in our impending future. By being proactive in holding our world leaders, big businesses, commercial fishing, and our own overconsumption accountable, we can provide a cleaner and safer future for generations to come.